What's up, Trekkies? Hi, so we don't actually have much except for, okay, there's only like 2 things that have been posted since, except for the really funny thing is they put out a patch and last Thursday we weren't able to do the breach because of some unknown reason. I think, I've heard rumors, because I didn't log in that day, I've heard rumors all the way from like the ship itself was shrunk and nobody could do anything with it, to you got all the way around to the edge and like the plug at the breach was like, it would go down to like 1 hit point and you couldn't actually go in. I don't know. I do know that some people that have the Enterprise J or the Romulan one, not the Klingon one, but the Romulan one, have an incredible amount of problem inside the breach because they're so wide that they have like this much room on the side. So, you know, sucks to be you. Also, I whipped out my anoraks. Why would you say it that way? Because I saw the Enterprise J at Deep Space Nine, and so I Snapchatted that it was so horrendously large compared to my Vesta. Oh my god, Cryptic, this is so large. And then I saw a tarantula come in, and I was like, so I whipped out my anoraks and was like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense. They're not actually all that big in comparison to the anoraks. It's just that, you know, my ship actually looks like a big giant wang rather than hiding behind the Enterprise. Whatever, I don't. Even on the Facebook groups, people have a lot of just rage about these things. But, you know, I don't rage out. I rage here because artistic license and opinion. Welcome to YouTube and the internet. In terms of actual news, we have a story that I did read because apparently they're giving a lot of behind the scenes stuff about the Tzenkethi, on the story things. I didn't care about the Lucari, like, I don't know, no. This one deals with like dissension amongst the ranks, like not all the Tzenkethi are on board with what they're doing. And they talk about crystals as a power source. And I'm like, are they dilithium? Are the and my formulation here is, are the Tzenkethi bombing worlds with dilithium on them so that nobody can, because everyone else apparently uses dilithium, except for Romulans, power their ships. So if you remove the entire, nobody can wage war because they use proto-matter. But like Romulans use a black hole, so a little issue there. But it significantly takes down your possible enemies. I mean, we're talking like Dominion and, you know, Cardassians, Federation, Klingons, all that stuff. That's that. That's actually kind of a fun read. But the other thing, the big news, is the details on space balance changes, because not really many people care about ground. So the goals boil down to increase the fun, player investment retains value. I'm going over this one again here. Choices should be meaningful, which they exemplified that in the new skill tree. Rather than having like 9 points split up amongst 3 groups, you now just have each of those groups as one, and they funneled more things into each other. Like I said before in the talent tree thing, people were picking up flow capacitors but not power insulators because they're like, well, it doesn't do any offense. But then like a brain's gonna hit them with an energy siphon and they go because they don't have any they don't have any power insulators. They just all have flow capacitors. Now they have drain control, so you have defense and offense, so that's a good thing. They say Star Trek Online's combat system in space is very expansive, and the freedom it gives players to choose the combinations of items and abilities that gives them the playstyle they want. In many cases, this is a playstyle that makes me the optimum supreme best, and the idea of like predestination versus free will. And Aaron told me a joke about that, I'm not gonna get into it. However, people that say, oh, I'm going to free will towards the very best, so they wind up taking someone else's build part for part, and they'll spend any amount of money or whatever they need to do exactly what someone else does. And it's like, is that necessarily free will? Or did you choose this because someone told you to? Whereas my build is free will, because I look at my stuff, I look at my abilities, and I decide what I need, and I go after that by learning what everything is. Other people take what someone else says to do and does that. So free will, Calvinist, yada yada, predetermined. Bunch of philosophy there, not a place for this. So one of the major things here is carrier pets. I've been having an issue recently where my Delta flyers do not want to get inside my butt. And I say my butt because I fly Vesta and my shuttle bay is in the back. There's a lot of they have them on the wings, and the anoraks, they come in the side, but in the Vesta, they go in my butt. Carrier pets are getting some significant changes. They will have received an updated AI to be more responsive, thankfully. They're immune to 1 torpedo every 30 seconds. Are unaffected by warp core breaches, which is the big deal that they're... and you get all your fighters wiped out. Even if you're using a carrier, that's like 12 fighters wiped out in one blast, especially on a Borg cube. You know, you gotta have scramble fighters and you gotta hit just to make them all immune for a second. They've received health and damage increase. Carrier pets which have scratched the paint have received a few other buffs to account for this. Weapons are undergoing a lot of changes at making the various types and firing modes more relevant. Beam overload will not always critically hit, but it's had its damage increased. Kind of going back to what it was. And additionally gives your basic attacks with beam weapons a significant amount of bonus damage and crit severity for a short duration after being activated. So it's not just the beam that you shoot with, which usually people try to use with a dual beam, but all your beams are just gonna fire really powerful for, doesn't say how long, but maybe like 3 seconds, at least 1 firing cycle. Fire at will, slight penalty to weapon damage, instead of an increase at all at ranks 2 and 3, and its accuracy, and has an accuracy debuff as well. Doing a lot of fire at will, you're gonna need to get your accuracy up there a bit. Now, this one gets me, and I had to reread it a couple times. Target subsystem, I fly science vessels, so I have target subsystem engines, shields, you know, I have them all, but only level 1, have been redesigned, so now they enable all your energy weapons to place a stacking power drain debuff on the target, and have a chance to take the target's relevant subsystem offline. So, does that mean that, like, if you target subsystem shields, that you're just gonna overall power drain and maybe set the shields offline? Or are you gonna slowly drain the shield power? Like, it's not very specific. Probably having the fact that there are the 4 different kinds that you will have a chance to drain it. And if it's a drain all, then it's not gonna be that big of a drain. But if it's only drain that subsystem with a chance to knock it offline, then the power drain is gonna be more and the chance to knock it offline will be lessened. But if it's like an all power drain with a chance of having one of the one go offline, the offline chance is gonna be higher. That's how abilities work. You gotta balance it somehow. I've watched enough of how change on WoW, so. Kinetic weaponry, so torpedoes, mines, kinetic beam, I guess, have some changes as well. Targetable torpedoes now fly faster. Bless it. Both targetable torpedoes and mines are no longer affected by hazard abilities such as Gravity Well and Tychon's Rift. This should make them feel less sluggish and eliminate situations where they would detonate instantly on launch, while still allowing time for them to be actually shot down. That's good. The different careers have received slight changes, mostly focused on increasing the effectiveness of engineering and science captains. Subnucleonic beam, it's a targeted dispel magic for those that play other games. Science captains have a dispel magic, in case you didn't know that. A lot of people don't use it in PvE. They probably use it in PvP, but I wouldn't know. I know I've used it. When I see things like buff themselves up, I subnuke. It's on shift 9. I don't see it, I just know it's shift 9. And I always have to put it on shift 9, otherwise I'm gonna screw up. Anyways, so now that's gonna be a lieutenant commander or higher. So lieutenant commander or commander. So it'll be lieutenant commander is rank 1, commander is rank 2 and rank 3. In its place, so everyone will be able to get, dispel. As long as you have at least a lieutenant commander universal. Then you can put a science officer in there and get at least subnuke 1, which again clears debuffs and adds time to their cooldown. So it can help on some NPCs. I know I've subnuked just for the hell of it, even though they don't have any buffs, but because it'll raise their cooldown, shall we say. So at rank 3, as you get it at a captain, it removes all buffs from the target and minus 70% recharge speed for 30 seconds at aux power 125. It goes up to like 80% because I go to 130 because of my warp core. But that's like, when you're looking at something that has a 2-minute cooldown, so 120 seconds, you're already increasing that well over 3-minute cooldown. And that just sits there for 30 seconds. So I've like, before I go into combat, I've sub-nuked something and it's like activated all its abilities and whatnot. Usually I wait till it has abilities up. That's going to be available for everyone. In its place, Science Captains will now gain Deflector Overcharge, which significantly increases outgoing healing, control abilities, drain abilities, and exotic damage. So we're actually getting Science Captains are getting a DPS boost. I call it Arcane Power in my head because that's what Arcane Mages do. 30% more damage for 30% reduced cost. But you only get it for a certain amount of time. This is probably, since there's not a down, there's only an up. So it's not going to be that great a up. Again, balance, that's how these things work. Either that or the short duration is really short. Probably 10 seconds, maybe? Enough to get off several abilities. Combat effectiveness of allies summoned by Photonic Fleet has been significantly increased. What is significantly increased? These guys are already pretty powerful as is. They're just holograms. Miracle Worker's healing has been significantly increased, thankfully. When I was playing my engineer, holy crap! It was like, I'd hit Miracle Worker and not even gain half my health back. It now gives a significant amount of secondary shielding for a short duration, which is good. I like secondary shielding. Now that I have this Vesta and I can drain shields from nearby enemies and get a secondary shielding, I am addicted to secondary shielding. A lot. So, yay for engineering getting secondary shielding on demand, basically. EPS power transfer also gives the target an increase to maximum subsystem power levels for its duration. This can be stacked with other increases to max subsystem power levels, such as your warp core. That's a benefit there, but you gotta remember it'll be the target, but most people use it on themselves. A few other very significant changes that will come with this patch. All abilities that reflect damage now deal the damage type they are reflecting. Reflected damage can no longer critically hit or be buffed by any damage increases. So sorry, reflective tanks. All hot restart powers that automatically remove a subsystem offline can no longer apply more than once per minute. All holds now give their target hold resistance for a short duration when they end. All disables now give their target disable resistance for a short duration when they end. So you can't be locked down. All player damage immunities now place 15-second lockout on you, during which you cannot activate or otherwise be affected by any more damage immunities, and are all now buffs that can be removed. The equation used to determine how weapons power influences your damage has been changed to a higher benefit at low power levels than before. The same benefit as before with 100 weapons power and slightly less while above. So your weapon power is a bigger deal, but not so much since you're fluctuating. Like if you fluctuate between like 125 or 130, since you would have that warp core, and like 123 or something, again, you're constantly like doing that, you're not going to get a major damage decrease while doing that. But if you're running at a lower weapon power level, such as like me, I run at 85, but my power level actually goes really high. When you start out in combat, at least, before I start draining and accumulating power, my weapons will actually be significantly good. So the list of changes goes well beyond what can be put into this blog. Understandable. There's going to be a mechanics AMA on the forums and on the STO build subreddit in the near future to answer questions about how things will work. Yeah, the full list of initial changes will be in a triple patch in the near future. Yada yada. This stuff is coming. Those patch notes are going to be insane. I don't know if I can cover them in a video without losing my voice. So we'll just wait with bated breath to see how these changes affect people. And if you like what these science captain changes, or the engineering captain changes, or if you're distraught that tactical aren't being buffed, whatever. I'll catch you guys next week. Bye.